And when we avoid that discomfort by blaming or controlling or shutting down, it amplifies the tension in a relationship.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Desiree Caruso, Naturopathic Doctor, and I'm interviewing my friend and colleague, Brandi Garden, the co-founder of Eversio Wellness and author of Healing Your Body, Mind, and Soul. Today, we are diving into Chapter 12, Parenting Tomorrow's Leaders. This was my favorite chapter. Brandi, in this chapter, you include this powerful quote by Dr. Shefali Sabari. The parenting journey holds the potential to be a spiritually regenerative experience for both parent and child, where every moment is a meeting of spirits. I had to sit with that one when I read it. It was so profound for me. Most of us were raised to think that parenting is about shaping, correcting, or getting it right. How does viewing parenting as a spiritual journey completely change the way we show up as parents?
Yeah, I will say, if you have not read the work of Dr. Shefali, go follow her on social media, read her books. It's where everything in this chapter stemmed from the learnings that I was exposed to and then put into practice with my own 2 children. So if you don't know that about me, I have 2 teenagers in my life, one living at home, one not living at home. And I think when we see parenting as a spiritual journey instead of as a performance, which is what I was going to say, we see it as this performance. It's not that. Everything softens when we see it as, like you said, this spiritual journey. The pressure to be perfect dissolves when it's not a performance anymore. And then curiosity, one of my favorite words, gets to come and take its place. And if you're wondering what it sounds like, it's instead of asking, how do I fix this? It means you start saying, what is this moment inviting me to see? This is a big one, in myself. That was I was always wondering what was wrong with them. What's wrong with them? Trust me, there's nothing wrong with your kids. There's nothing wrong with them. When you view parenting this way, it shifts us from control to a connection you will thrive on always in your life. It reminds us that our children are not projects. They are actually partners in our growth. Every interaction with them becomes an opportunity for more awareness and compassion and evolution for both the parent and the child. And when parents show up with that level of presence, children feel it immediately. They feel seen, they feel respected, and they feel safe to be who they actually are, who they came here to be.
Very cool. I love all of that. And I think a lot of parents maybe could shift that as seeing it as a teaching opportunity. I don't have kids, but I think any interaction but thinking about interacting with children in general, whether it's your nieces or the kids you're coaching, looking at it and seeing it as an opportunity rather than directing blame or being, struggling through it. Okay, I love this question that you pose in the chapter. How would your relationship with your child transform if you viewed them not as a responsibility to mold, but as a spirit to guide and learn from? What actually shifts when parents adopt this mindset?
It's a hard one. We have to stop rushing. The relationship becomes really collaborative instead of part of a hierarchy, which is what we were taught. So no blame and shame. We live in Canada, I think in North America, in many cultures, we are taught, the queen is here, and then the rest of the government, and then politicians, and then teachers, and then parents, and then kids are this like trash at the bottom of the heap. And we have to stop that. When you stop trying to mold a child into who you think they should be because you feel like you're higher than them on a hierarchy, you create space for who they already are to start to emerge. And that is where trust grows on both sides of the relationship, because you start listening more than directing. That was so hard for me. If you have been trained and conditioned to parent one way for the first 10 years of your child's life, which was me, you really have to stop talking, which was so hard for me. And you have to start listening, observing more than correcting, learning more than teaching. And what surprised me most, I think, was realizing how much wisdom children carry when we are willing to meet them as equals. And I was a teacher an elementary school teacher for 20 years as well. This wasn't just my own children. This was looking out at these 30 souls ahead of me that I knew that I had more to learn from them than I would ever be able to teach to them with a, curriculum that was handed to me. They show us our blind spots and our patterns and the work we still have to do, often without saying a word. If it triggered you, thank them. That is your work.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. It reminds me of like this shift in perspective from thinking as kids kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy to as a soul who is here to also teach us and guide us. It reminds me of that saying, well, that's just how we've always done it.
Yep.
Right? But just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that we should continue to do it that way. Can we be curious? Can we be introspective? Mm-hmm. You talk about children acting as mirrors for us, and you just eloquently did that in the previous question. But in this chapter, you really talk about that. Do you think that sometimes parents try to avoid or maybe ignore the discomfort of what that mirror is showing them? And does trying to avoid it actually create more discomfort than choosing to shift our approach?
Yes, children have a way of triggering us right where we are unfinished. That was me. And when I say unfinished, I'm not trying to diminish any work you've done up to this point, but you aren't finished till you're finished. And your children will always be your children, even when they're 30, and they will trigger you right where you need it because you are not finished. And when we avoid that discomfort by blaming or controlling or shutting down, it amplifies the tension in a relationship. So I want you to think about that. If you have a teenager, there is tension in your relationship. And if you haven't experienced it, I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below and tell me how you're doing that. The discomfort doesn't disappear. It just shows up louder. When we choose instead to pause and ask, you have to take that breath, take that pause. What did that just activate in me? And I probably do this 10 times a day. Parenting becomes a very powerful healing tool. And that is why I left this chapter for last in a book called Healing Your Body, Mind, and Soul. Parenting became the tool I did not have before I became a parent, and I had no idea how powerful it could be for me until I started doing the research. The mirror stops feeling like an attack, and it starts feeling like an invitation, and every trigger is just pointing toward growth, which is a gift, and ignoring it will keep you stuck. When facing it, it sets everyone free, you and your child in that relationship.
Yeah, it sets you free. That's what we want. There's a line in this chapter that I think will resonate with so many parents. And it goes, and it resonated with me, and I don't even have any children.
But you are one. And I think we all, if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm not a parent, you have parents.
True.
So just flip that and put it into that perspective. And I think so much can come out of something you might not feel like you're the child anymore, but you always will be.
And we can reparent ourselves.
Yes.
That's the first child we ever learned to parent.
Yes.
So this quote goes, there are no handbooks given out when babies arrive, and so much to unlearn. I think that was actually my favorite sentence in this entire chapter, and I cried after this chapter. It was my favorite. But what were some of the biggest things that you personally had to unlearn in order to parent more consciously?
Yeah. Well, every time you say unlearn, I think it's Alvin Toffler who says that the illiterate people in the centuries to come will not be the people who can't read or learn. It will be the people who can't unlearn and then do the relearning required. And that is so apparent in this parenting question, because one of the biggest things I had to unlearn was the idea that fear equals responsibility. When my kids were younger, especially because my children both have PKU, so they have a metabolic condition. When they got those diagnoses, I parented from fear. Fear of getting it wrong, fear of the consequences of that, fear of failing them. And I had to unlearn the belief that control would equal safety. And I had to replace that with trust. Trust in my children's own intelligence. I have two very intelligent, beautiful human beings that I get to call my kids. They trust their bodies. I didn't trust their bodies like I should have. So they need to trust in their bodies, their own. They need to trust in their ability to learn through experience. So letting go of guilt was a huge one for me. Forgiving myself for what I didn't know yet was essential to becoming the parent that I wanted to be. Thinking of our obstacles becoming opportunities, which is a theme throughout the book as well, was never so clear as having these kids.
I love that. You write that when children are allowed to make their own choices, they practice tuning into what lights them up. Why is this so important for raising confident and intuitive leaders?
Because leadership starts with self-trust. When children are constantly told what to choose, they learn to outsource their inner knowing, which you talk about all the time, Dr. Desiree. Why do we get to a place where we as adults think someone's coming to save us? It's because we learned that as children by being told what to choose, what to do, what to say, and how to do it, and to constantly be outsourcing how they should behave or feel. And when they're allowed to make choices, even terrible ones, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until, neuroscience will tell you anywhere between 25 and 30 this week. But it's not when they're children. So expecting them to make good choices is not smart. But when they are allowed to make their own choices and experience natural consequences of those choices, that is how they develop confidence. That's how they learn what intuition feels like. That is how they gather discernment in their life. They learn, oh, I can actually listen to myself and I can recover from choices that weren't, people say mistakes all the time. I don't believe they're in mistakes. There's just poor choices and great choices. And if they can learn to recover from a poor choice, then they know they can adapt. And adaptability is a life tool everyone needs more of. And that's the foundation of leadership in the world that they are growing into. It's not obedience. That's not going to make effective adults in the world we are living in right now with AI and technology and what is coming for us. We are moving quickly. They need sovereignty. So I'm going to repeat that. It is not obedience. It is sovereignty that will give them the foundation of leadership in the world that they are growing into.
I love how in this chapter, it's so relatable. You invite parents to reflect on their own triggers and patterns, just like you have said, and use them as opportunities for growth and healing. How can parents begin to work with their triggers instead of reacting to them, like a how-to?
The first step is slowing down the moment between the trigger and the reaction to it. That pause is everything. And we can call this the refractory period. But we all, as human beings, tend to react instead of respond unless you have some self-awareness that has taught you that the responses will go further for you. So that pause between the trigger and the reaction is everything. When something activates you, you have to try saying, stop. I'm triggered. I'm recognizing it in my body. Those hormones of stress will be gone in 90 seconds, up to 2 minutes possibly, but that's it. So it's not forever that you're going to feel these hormones of stress in your body. And in the time you're waiting for them to disperse, you can say, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this about my child or about my past? And regulating your own nervous system before responding changes the entire interaction that's about to go down right there, that you've probably replayed 1,000 times and never goes well and just leads us to the same place it always does. Children don't need perfect parents. They need regulated parents. And when parents model emotional responsibility, children just learn it naturally. That's the way it is.
Yeah, they learn it naturally and they lean into your nervous system. You are providing that environment to mirror for them.
Every moment of every day.
My second favorite line in this chapter, it stopped me in my tracks. It goes, every moment is both the teacher and the gift. So first, what does that quote mean to you? And second, how does viewing parenting through this lens change the way that we experience even the hardest moments?
I am going to get that tattooed on my body one day. Okay, probably not. I'm probably not getting tattoos, but every moment is both the teacher and the gift. like, if we could just memorize it and just say that. If you're not a meditator, you could still close your eyes and repeat that. If you're a meditator, make it your mantra for a couple weeks. Every moment is both the teacher and the gift. To me, it means nothing is wasted. And I love that.
Mm.
It's that meltdown. I've been there. The argument, those poor choices, every moment is teaching us something. For me, it was about patience. It was about boundaries. It was about what does love really mean to me. It was teaching me about myself. And the gift is the awareness that comes from seeing it that way. When we stop resisting those hard moments and we start meeting them with curiosity, they soften. And I have been in the grocery store with the screaming toddler who's screaming the F word, and you are embarrassed. But trust me, on the other side, I watch those parents in those moments, and am the one who will go and say to them, "You're killing it. And I see you, and you should never be embarrassed or apologize for your child's meltdown in public." That is reality. And the people who are judging you probably just don't have kids, and their opinion should not matter to you. They do not sit at your table. If they're not in the arena, their opinion does not matter to you, and we have to learn to get over that. I think when we stop resisting those hard moments, they still challenge us, but they no longer define us as a failure. And parents often feel this way. Parents, you can relate. Parenting becomes less about surviving stages and more about growing through them together. There's so much to learn there, and they're not going to be like that for very long. So enjoy it. As weird as that sounds, you're growing together, and they should be documented and laughed about later and enjoyed as much as possible.
Very wise. When you talk about parenting tomorrow's leaders, you're not talking about control or perfection. You're talking about self-trust, empathy, and sovereignty. What qualities do you believe truly define a leader in the world our children are growing into?
I believe the leaders that our world needs are self-aware. They are emotionally intelligent. That's the biggest thing. Goosebumps all over my whole body. It is what the world needs most right now, more emotional intelligence. They are empathetic, and they are grounded in their own values. Too many of us could not tell you right now which values are most important to us. And you know me, Dr. Desiree, I'm always throwing a list around, and your values can change over time. But on any moment in time, we should be able to say, I value health more than anything else. And then my actions should speak to that. So when our kids learn that, then they trust themselves. They listen deeply. They collaborate instead of dominate. And I think leadership isn't about having all of the answers. It's about asking better questions. And that's what is my hope for the school system one day. Teaching kids to stop just answering the question the way that you think the teacher wants you to answer it in order to get the mark. It's about the question. And how can we ask better questions? Again, we are living in a world of AI. If you can't ask great questions and then ask great questions about the answer you got from your first great question, you're behind. So we need to be teaching that if we want good leaders. We need to understand about holding complexity and acting from integrity rather than from fear all of the time. Those qualities are learned at home to me. They're not learned in the classroom. I can tell you, I spent 20 years there. I did not teach that. I was not taught to teach that. I was not encouraged to share that. That gets taught in your house through how you speak to your children, how you repair after conflict, and that is after conflict with your kids and after conflict in the other relationships in your life that your children are watching happen. And how we model responsibility for our own emotions, because we have them. It's okay to cry in front of your kids. It's okay to have hard days. They need to see it so that they can see you recover, so that they understand emotional recovery. A boss is going to yell at them one day. It's going to happen. Not at Eversio Wellness. But in life, things are going to happen. And if kids have never seen what recovery looks like, it's very hard for them to understand what they're capable of.
I'm reminded of that quote that goes, if you want to change the world, go home and love your children. And if you don't have children, love on your people. Change, love on your inner child and love on.
Especially on the hard days.
especially on the hard days. For
Yeah.
parents, so speaking of hard days, for parents listening who maybe feel overwhelmed, they feel unsure, or like they're constantly falling apart, what compassion or reassurance would you want to offer them?
I would tell them that your love matters more than your perfection. They are not seeing your Gucci handbag and your perfect hair and that you are the most popular in your parent group. They are just loving you, I promise you.
Mm.
If you are reflecting, questioning, and willing to grow, you are already parenting consciously. They want to see that you're not staying the same, that you are interested in growth and evolution and transformation, that you question things, that you are somebody who is out there and reflecting on what happened in a day, hopefully at the dinner table.
Mhm.
Nobody gets this right all of the time. It's not about perfection. Parenting is humbling by design. I think it's the hardest job you will ever have if you are a parent. And every repair or apology or moment of presence counts more than we realize. So you are not behind. You are learning, and you are learning right alongside your child. So your learning didn't start until that little soul looked back at you and is saying to you, hey, we're on this journey together as equals, holding hands side by side along the most beautiful journey we ever will experience.
This chapter feels like such a full circle moment, and not just because it's the final chapter of your book, but full circle because healing ourselves so that we don't pass wounds forward and raising children who are free to be who they truly are. That's what life is. If
Yeah.
there's one intention you hope parents take away from healing your body, mind, and soul, what would it be?
My hope is that parents remember healing themselves is parenting. And I
Mm.
am the recipient of that from my own incredible parents. When we choose awareness over that reaction, when we choose love over fear, when we experience connection over control, we change the trajectory, not just for our children, but for generations and generations and generations to come. Every moment truly is a meeting of spirits, and how we show up matters more than we will ever know. So just keep showing up.
Thank you for this and all of your insight for all of your chapters. This is the final chapter of healing your body, mind, and soul. But thank you for reminding us that healing ourselves really does change everything.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, we'll see you guys in the next series on our YouTube channel. Be well, everyone.
Be well, everyone. Sending you so much love.